So, what do you do when a sweet friend calls you and says, "Hey, I've got a lot of grapes," and she couldn't even give them all away at church? So, I brought home grapes. So I have grapes. This is about half. The others are the dark purple grapes, and they have seeds, but we're not going to eat them all. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to juice them, and then I can either can the juice or I can make jelly with it. Now I don't expect to get a ton of juice because by the time you get all the stems and seeds and skins and everything else out, it's a lot less. But I'm going to use a steam juicer to get that juice out, and I believe it's much the easiest way. And if you're not familiar with a steam juicer, it's 3 parts. So the bottom is water that you will bring to a boil, and this holds 5 quarts. Then there's the center part where the juice will collect, but the steam will come up through that cone. And it also has the tube that will drain off the juice. And then the top is where you will put your fruit, and it has perforations around the edges, and that's where the juice will come out of the grapes and drop into this center part, and then the lid. So that's a steam juicer. I've already got water, 5 quarts in the bottom of it. I'm gonna thoroughly wash the grapes, take the stems off, take out any bad ones, and then we're gonna load the grapes into this top. Since this is mostly full, I'm gonna go ahead and start the juicer. And to do that, we've got the fruit in there, we've got all 3 pieces together, and I'm gonna turn the heat on pretty high. We want this to come to a full boil and start steaming, and then we're going to turn it down. I brought it up to a rapid boil, and I turn it down until it stays at a rolling boil. And we're just going to let this steam and continue to get the juice out of these. We'll check it in a little bit, and I'll let you know how long. It's been about 1 hour, and you have to check the water fairly frequently to make sure it doesn't boil out. Now, depending on what kind of fruit you have, it could take 3 hours to juice, and you're going to have to top off that water in the bottom pot. I don't think the grapes are going to take that long. Again, it's been 1 hour, and that's what's coming out the tube right now, and I'm about to see how much drains out into a pot. And you have to be very careful because this is all very hot. Steam is very hot. So I have a stool here with my pot on it, and it needs to be lower than this pot. So I'm going to bring this tube down, and it has a clamp on it right here. And let's see how much juice comes out. And it's hot. That's a fair amount so far. Now, this is not diluted. As the steam goes up through the top layer, I think that's it for now, and we'll see what comes out in a little bit. As the steam goes up through the top layer, it causes the grapes to burst, and then it goes down through the perforations into this layer. So that pot is about almost half full. And if you open this up, there's still grapes with juice in there. So we're gonna let this keep going. Again, we're gonna keep an eye on that bottom pot, make sure it doesn't run out of water. After just over an hour, I basically got a half gallon plus a quart. So not bad. And that was just over an hour. That was one load in the steam juicer. And this is what was left. There's a tiny bit of juice in there, but when I mashed on it, mostly the juice was gone. So on to the next one. This is what I got out of one batch of the purple grapes and one batch out of the red. And you can obviously see which is which. And after tasting each of them, the purple is very intense, very good, very much like grape juice that you would buy. The red is sweet and not quite as much as that, but I've decided I'm going to blend them together and I'm going to can that. Then I'm going to save quite a bit more and we're going to freeze those. There's bacon bits right at my feet. We're going to save those for eating because the red ones are just really tasty to eat. So I'm going to combine all of these and then can them up. And I'm going to can in pints and half pints. We would probably use them in pints, but we're going to do half pints to take to our little church to do our monthly Lord's Supper, Holy Communion. And this is what remains after I have cooked the juices out of it. And I'm going to give this to the chickens. They're going to love it. So I was too tired last night to can up this grape juice. So I'm doing that this morning. And I've got everything laid out. And I kept these in a cooler with ice last night because I didn't have room in the refrigerator and I was just too tired to do it. So as I said, I'm going to mix both kinds together. And I've already done one of these jars is a mixture because there wasn't room in the cooler for 4 half gallons. But we could get 3, so I mixed the 1 quart of purple and 1 quart of red grape juice. And it tasted just fine. Look at the color of that jar. It's beautiful juice. It smells and it tastes really, really good. So I'm going to warm up this grape juice, and so this will be hot, my jars will be hot, and the steam canner is going to be hot. That's where I'm heating up my jars. And I've decided I'm going to use 3 different kinds of flat lids today. I've been testing lids and I haven't done it for a while because things happened. But what I have today is I have ForJars. I've used these. I have had no fail. They're wonderful lids. They're nice thickness. They pop. And they've got a good amount of sealant. Then I'm trying Superb lids. Now these feel like they're thicker metal. And they've got their logo on the front. And it has a blue sealant. Now the blue sealant doesn't look as wide as ForJars, but it does seem pretty thick. So we'll try that, and it does pop. And this is from Dutchman's, and it looks like the Superb lid, except without the logo. Again, it's kind of thicker. It doesn't seem to pop as easily as the Superb, but I may just not be doing it well with one hand. But the sealant looks the same, so we're gonna get in there. Easily identifiable, so when I pull them out of the canner, you'll know which is which. I've already cleaned them, washed them. I'm going to heat them in not boiling water, just warm, really warm water. And we'll see what the results are of these 3 types of lids. So I'm just going to bring this just to boiling. And if you want, you can add sugar to taste. I'm not adding any sugar. This tastes perfect and sweet, just like it is. So no sugar is added. But you would add it now and you'd stir it until it's completely dissolved. Then bring it just to boiling. Now, according to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, you should refrigerate your juice after, and it's calling for you to cook the grapes and smash them and do all of that. I use the steam canner, which doesn't give as much residue. It gives some. But according to the NCHFP, you should refrigerate the juice overnight, 24 to 48 hours, then strain it, and then heat it and fill your jars. I'm doing a little bit different, and my way is fine also because I processed it differently. I used the steam canner, so mostly the juice is all that came through. There's a little bit of sediment, not much. What I'm gonna do, I have this coffee strainer that is very, very fine. This is stainless steel. I don't even know if you can see how small those holes are. They're like pinpricks. And it does a great job of straining, and I use this all the time, and that's all it's used for. I don't make coffee with it. And I bought this on Amazon. I'll try and leave a link below. I use this a lot of times when I'm straining anything. And it's quick, it's easy, and then I just rinse it out, throw it in the dishwasher, and it's clean, and I store it away for next time. The other thing I like about this, it fits well in a canning funnel. So I can put this on there and strain it, and I'll show you how it works. If there's anything to strain out, there probably is very fine stuff, but we'll see what this catches. I've turned my grape juice down to just keep it hot. I'm gonna pull a jar out of my steam canner where they're staying warm. And I'm going to put my funnel and strainer there. And we want to fill this to 1/4 inch headspace. And if you're not familiar with headspace, that is the amount of space left at the top of the jar. And if you have one of these, this first notch right here is 1/4 inch. So you can test it by holding it there, and mine is right at. So now I'm going to take a clean paper towel, dampen it, and go around the edges. Take one of my lids. This is the ForJars out of the hot water. This jar is very hot, so be careful. A fingertip tight is when you can just lightly turn it and there's no resistance. And now that jar is going to go in the canner. It's such a beautiful color. And again, these jars are very hot, so be careful. As I believe I said last night, I'm doing half pints because I'm gonna take these half pints to church for the Lord's Supper that we hold every month. Communion. And we have a very small church, so it doesn't take a whole lot. These will be shelf stable till we need them. Just shy of 1/4 inch. And with something like grape juice that is sticky, I do try and clean the threads a little bit. And this is a superb lid. Try and get it centered. Fingertip tight. Don't crank down on these. They need a slight amount of give so that they can release any air during processing. Now that is what this is filtering out, and it's mostly like a foam. but it does a great job of filtering. Now, if you cook the grapes instead of steam process, you'll probably want to strain it before you get to this point. And I'm already going to have to rinse this because of that foam. But I really do love this little strainer. Again, it's a coffee filter, stainless steel. It's just so convenient for smaller amounts. And it is hot. So now I'm going to take one of the lids from Dutchman's that looks like Superb with no printing. I'm planning on making a dozen half-pint jars, so I'm going to do 4 of each. So I've got all 12 half pints in my steam canner. Now the rack that comes with the steam canner will not support these, so I have this silicone rack that it's like a mat, and I put that on the bottom and they fit. I'm gonna have to straighten up a couple of those jars slightly, but this works. Now I'm gonna process this at the full steam level, which is here in this green, for 10 minutes for anywhere from 1,001 to 6,000 feet, which I fall in that. And if you need to know your altitude, and I recommend you go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, NCHFP, and look that up. And it also gives you the most current times, pressures, all of that for canning your food. So once it gets up into that green section, then I will set my timer for 10 minutes. And I need to add that the 10 minutes processing for my altitude is for pints and quarts, and that would include half pints. If you want to can half gallons, then that's going to be 15 minutes. I process these jars for 10 minutes. Then I move the lid to be just ajar a little bit so that some of the heat could escape. And I set the timer for 5 minutes. So now I'm going to take the jars out and see how they did. It looks great. I'm going to put this on a cloth-covered counter. Never put it directly on a cold countertop. Pop. That was the first one. And I would really recommend leaving a little bit of space in between the jars on the countertop so that the air can get to them and allow them to cool evenly. Now, if you don't have a steam canner, you can use water bath, and the times are the same for steam or water bath. With water bath, you need to have a pot with a good fitting lid. You need to have a rack or something on the bottom so the jars don't sit directly on the bottom. And in that case, you're going to cover the jars with at least 1 inch of water. 2 would be great. With the steam canner, and the reason I love it, is you only have to fill the water in the bottom to the top of the rack. It doesn't go up around the jars at all. The steam is what's going to be hot enough to process. Okay, all 12 jars look good. And if you look in the bottom, there's the silicone pad that I told you about. But the water comes up to, just underneath that pad. That's all you have to fill. Now since, oh, there's wonderful pops. Since this has been going a while, I have a kettle of hot water, and I'm gonna refill this since some has evaporated. Never want to let it run dry. Now I'm gonna put some pint jars in here and get them hot. I already have the juice is still hot. Once my jars get heated, then we'll start this process again using pints. And you treat the pints or quarts or half gallons exactly the same way as far as putting on lids and rings. That one's fitting kind of tight. That's very odd. That one's not. So fingertip tight. Beautiful jars in the canner. So I got 12 half pints and 4 pints of the grape juice, and that much is left. And I'm gonna drink that. Well, here they are, the 12 half pints, the 4 pints, and I drank that little bit that was left. It was so good and not overly sweet, but it wasn't tart either. It's just really nice tasting. I have these on a cloth on my counter. I'm going to leave them undisturbed for at least 12 hours, could be 24. And up to that time, if they do not seal, it is still safe to either use or refrigerate to use soon, or you could reprocess depending on what it is and if you want to spend the time reprocessing. I have these beautiful jars of grape juice, and thank you, Danny, so much for all the grapes. They are so much appreciated. And this is the result of all of the jars that I did, and that was 12 half pints, 4 pints, and I did almost an equal amount of each of the 3 types of lids. I did 5 jars with the ForJars lids. I did 6 jars with the Superb lids, and I did 5 with the lids from Dutchman's. So 5, 5, and 6, and everything sealed well. So I'm very happy with it. I didn't have any siphoning. I didn't have any lid failures. and I test them by holding them up by the edges. All of them pass that test. I will keep an eye on them, but I have had good luck with these lids and I have no problem using them again. And ForJars I've used for a while now and I still have zero fail on that. So thank you for watching and God bless.